Subconjunctival hemorrhage. This is proof of my stress as a software engineer who's been laid off. It's been 8, 9 months since I've been laid off, quite literally due to AI. It's the classic formula that many companies have been using, which is laying off 50 to 70% of your workforce, leaning heavily into AI and cutting costs across the board. And to be fair, with my experience of talking to many CEOs in this 9 months and founders, it's not working. That's a whole nother topic. I don't want to get into that. I really debated on doing this video because I've seen a lot of other software engineers out there in the same exact position that I'm in, telling their story, and I wondered what's the value of me even telling my story. And to be honest with you, I just want to get it off my chest. I want to push it out into the ether, and maybe someone can relate to what I've been going through, because this whole process has just taken a huge stressful toll on my life, more than I can imagine. You know, there were a lot of outside factors that made 2025 the worst year of my life in general. But this compounded with that has just been brutal, and I'm tired. So I've taken a break. I've taken a break for a couple weeks now from applying to jobs, interviewing. I've just been too stressed, and my body has been telling me through anxiety, panic, hemorrhaging. My immune system was compromised, and I got extremely sick with a stomach bug, and it took me down. And I'm still recovering from the after effects of that. Overall, haven't been doing good, but since I've been taking this break, I've actually had a second to breathe and realize what's important to me. So I'm happy with that. So with that being said, I just wanted to speak about how bad, how horrendous this process has been. I knew it was going to be tough going into this. I knew I was going to have to fight hard, but I was not expecting to have to fight for my life for a job in which I have experience for. This was never in the playbook that our parents told us growing up, that we would have to fight so extremely hard just to get a job in the field that we studied for, spent so much time mastering, only to get rejection after rejection, scammed. You name it, I've been through it in this hiring process. So I've got about 10 years of experience in general in software engineering. Absolutely passionate about it. I love every part of this job. It gives me butterflies. It makes me feel happy. It makes me feel accomplished, like that brick wall feeling of getting stuck and getting through the other side and solving a problem is the whole reason I do this. 3.5 years of that experience has been with an actual job. So I guess you could say the other 7 years is more like hobby, which I think should count for something, because I spent a lot of hours learning stuff that prepared me for actually getting the job. So I was laid off last July due to AI workforce readjustments. So that was fun. I really enjoyed that last job I was in. The team I had that I was working with, really nice people I still keep in touch with. Really enjoyed that job, and got a lot of good experience there. So very small team. I knew it was going to go this way with AI because they're trying to save a lot of money, and it made sense. So I wasn't necessarily mad at that. I understood what was going on, but it's still extremely sad to have to let that go. As was it for people that had been there for more years and more time. So got laid off there and immediately was super fired up to start applying to positions. I had been told that startups were the way to go because you kind of get to skip the corporate BS with startups, or so you think you do. And it's a lot more informal, which has its pros and its cons. I found that mainly it had its cons. So I started applying on Well-Found, which gave me the best response per application. So about every 10 applications I did on Well-Found, I would get one response back. Um, Usually, this would be the founder or a hiring manager or the CEO or something to this effect. I was having a lot of luck there. I was talking to a lot of people, doing a lot of phone screenings. I still have yet to fail a phone screening, yay. Phone screenings are just really time for them to get to know a little bit about you, and you get to know a little bit about their process. Um, so this was great. You know, I was making it to round two, round three, where I would talk to the founder. And generally, the idea or the feeling that I was getting is these people were actually legitimately excited to work with me, or so they told me. They were literally telling me, we want to work with you, we want to build with you, we see your resume, we love your experience, we love the projects that you built, we're super excited. This was the general response. So I'm super hyped up thinking like, okay, I actually have a chance in this. The problem is startups have no idea right now during this, whatever you want to call it, bubble, what to do. They barely know what they need. They don't have a solid budget, and that budget can go bye-bye in a day or two, which is usually the circumstance that they ended up telling me. How true this is, I don't know. If this is a technique for them to let someone go without hurting their feelings, maybe, probably for some of them, not all. But for the most part, for startups, I found that they were not reliable. Some of the companies I had interviewed for and some of the founders I had talked to, they had funding one day. They literally ran out of funding the next because something happened, or they lost a lot of money on a new feature, or something broke. There were many cases where the company literally just shut down. So one day they're thinking about hiring somebody, and the next day they're literally shut down. I've had three companies where this happened, and I confirmed that sometimes even within the next week or the next month, they had completely shut down. So they have no idea what they want. They're too volatile. Startups, I don't know what to say for anybody searching for a job in a startup right now, but I wouldn't say it's the way to go, because it's probably going to waste your time. You're going to spend a lot of time interviewing and a lot of effort trying to get a job with a startup, and then you're going to find out that something bad happened. Most recently, somebody canceled on me after we had set up an interview. They were super stoked to talk to me, and they said, you know what, I'm sorry, we've run out of funding. So startups, I gave this a good solid try in the beginning, and then I realized I had to move on to more structured corporate roles. And this is where things got slow. The thing about corporate roles is you have a little bit more security with the job, or the idea of security that the job is going to stay there and they're going to have the funding, which also isn't always true. Um, but the problem is that the process is so long. We're talking minimum 6 steps for every single corporate role that I applied for. And I interviewed for, I believe, 7 or 8 corporate roles. So these were really long processes. Ask me how they need 6 steps to determine whether or not you deserve to be hired. I have no idea why it takes 6 steps. I mean, I understand the screening. The screening's a given. Talking to a hiring manager just to see if you mesh and then they can understand your systems experience, this kind of thing. Get to know you and see if you're going to be a good cultural fit is great. The problem where every single company fails miserably is the technical aspect. They do not know how to run a technical interview. I firmly believe personally that a technical interview where they have you solve some arbitrary problem is not helpful to them, and is certainly not worth my time, because they don't discover anything about how you write code or how you approach a problem. My idea of how you should interview someone technically is ask for one of their projects. Say, hey man, pull up one of your projects, walk me through it, show me how you do this and that. You know, implement a feature you've been wanting to implement in your project, fix something, anything like this is perfect. I have 56, 57 repositories on my GitHub over the past, since 2017 that any company can go look at, and they can pick whatever project they want and say, hey man, I want to see how this thing works. And I would happily showcase that to them. This arbitrary bullshit of having us solve a problem that is supposed to be related to the problem set that they have never works out. It's never the case. The problem that they give you is not even good. Like it's not even whenever you study the company and what they're looking for in your role, you end up finding out that the problem was terrible that they were giving you. So I don't believe in this. So I could go down the whole list of the interviews I went through for these 6-step process corporate hires, and it's just absolutely miserable whenever you make it to step 6 so many times or the final interview and you just get that rejection letter afterwards. You spend weeks and hours preparing for these things only to get your time wasted. Sometimes you get ghosted in the end. They don't reach out to you, give you any feedback if you request it. The whole process is absolutely horrible. The one that really, really kicked me was this last process I went to. It was a company, a well-known company, that I was super excited that they reached out. They reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to join their hiring process. They loved my experience. They had seen some of my projects. They really liked them. Super excited. So I applied for their software engineering 1 position. Being that I have 3.5 years of professional experience, I didn't believe that I was deserving of a role higher. So I did the screening, really get along with the recruiter. She loves everything that I have to say, and she sets up a hiring manager interview. I speak to the software engineering 1 hiring manager, and I'm having a bad day this day. So I tell him, I'm like, hey man, I'm having a horrible day. I just did a project for another company I was interviewing for and found out I was doing free labor because I pretty much got scammed in their interviewing process, which is a whole nother story. But I'm excited to talk to you today. And he was super nice. He understood exactly what I was going through, shared my same sentiment, and let me know that I was doing great. And he really liked what I had to say. And he also was very eager to solve problems with me as well. This interview ends after 50 minutes or so. It was a 45-minute slot. So we went 5 minutes over. It's always a good sign whenever you go more time than what's allotted. Recruiter gets back to me that night and says, hey, this hiring manager loves everything that you had to present, but they believe that you are suited better at a software engineering 2 position. Absolutely shook. I'm shook. I'm excited. I'm like, okay, they love me. She also mentions that he says he believes I'm an amazing cultural fit and they would love to get me on the team. But due to this rescaling of position to software engineering 2, they're giving me a pre-promotion in the interview process, and now I need to talk to the software engineering 2 hiring manager. So essentially I have to start the process all over again. I'm like, okay, sure. They let me know that I'm not going to have a chance at the software engineering 1 position if I rescale, and they're not going to scale me back to the software engineering 1 regardless because they believe I'm overexperienced for that. So I talked to the other hiring manager. It goes great. Also speak for about an hour, 45-minute slot, get along really well. Ask me a lot of systems questions. I answer them to the best of my ability. I'm feeling on top of the world, like, you know what, I'm going to get this. So I go through the process where I actually talk to another manager that's in charge at a higher billet. This also goes well. And then there's a technical portion where they send me a full stack project that incorporates with their internal API, and there's some Docker processes going on with a Postgres database, and you're implementing a feature that they rely heavily on. So I do this, and they get back to me. They love my solution. So they want to schedule the final panel interview. So the final panel interview gets scheduled. I'm feeling great. There are 2 other engineers and the hiring manager for the role that I would get. they're all asking me, bouncing back and forth systems questions. I'm answering these. They're letting me know, hey man, you're doing awesome. Like the guy literally says, you're doing great. Love your answers. There's a pair programming portion of this interview that I've been informed about prior to doing this interview. Pair programming to me means that there's a driver and then there's a navigator. It's a collaborative experience. It's supposed to be. This is what they told me it was going to be a collaborative experience. We go in there, guess what? The software engineer two that was sitting in the call gives me a problem, types it out in the chat, and says, okay, go ahead. So this was not collaborative at all. I just had three senior engineers watching me solve a problem silently. I was talking through the whole thing because I understand that it's good to talk through your process so they understand what's going on. This was a back end and front end solution that they needed me to persist some data. It was like a scoring chart essentially for what I had designed. I go through this thing. It takes me about 30 minutes. I complete it. I'm trying to be collaborative with them. I'm like, what do you guys think about this? You know, what trade-offs? These are the trade-offs I'm thinking about. Blah, blah, blah. Silence, like absolute silence. This was no pair programming. So I really wish they would have mentioned like, hey, this is us literally just observing how you write code, because I was sweating. If anybody has ever done a technical assessment, it's one thing to do leak code or something like this, but it's another thing when you have three senior engineers just breathing down your neck watching you code. This is a whole nother ballpark of stress. But I did it, and they all go through and they want to verify my solution. Everything works. Never does it fail. Everything is perfect. And they tell me, okay, you did great. Great solution. It's your turn to ask questions now. So I go through and I start asking the questions that I'm curious about. We go over the allotted time. We're laughing. We're having a good time. Interview ends. I think I have nailed it. I'm like, you know what? I got this job. Mind you, this job would be the highest paying job I would have ever got in my life. The starting pay was 187 to 217. 217,000 was the range for this. So this was an insane amount of money. And I was rescaled at software engineer 2. The other one was 150 to 200, I think. So this was a crazy amount of money. So I wait around. I don't hear anything for a week. So I do a follow-up with the recruiter. I wait around for another week. Decided to do another follow-up, and they reach out and tell me, hey, thank you for going through the process, but we really, really wanted someone that had more experience in regards to the project that we assigned to you. The one that they were excited about, the one that they told me that they loved. You know what? I was prepared for the worst because I know this market is terrible, but this one really crushed me because I had somebody literally vouching for me from a software engineer 1 position to get me to 2. They had told me, the recruiter always told me they loved me in their emails. They were telling me in the interviews themselves that I'm doing great, that they can't wait to work with me. I'm giving them tips. I'm asking them like, they're asking about AI and things like this, which models to use. And, I'm telling them that I like to use the planning feature, and I use a better model for planning, and then I use a worse model to actually build the boilerplate because it's a lot easier. And I asked them which ones do they use, and they say, we just set it on auto on cursor and let it go. So my mind's blown. I'm like, okay. So I'm like actually giving them tips, and they're just full sending code on auto. It's madness. Absolutely flabbergasted that this was the process that these high paid engineers went through. Yeah, so I'm shook up from that. That was, I thought for a while that I really looked inward because I was getting rejected a lot and bad things were happening during this process. And I started to realize, you know what, like maybe you just need to get better. Maybe you just need to get better. I've been through about 15, 16 interviews in 8 or 9 months. And for the first portion of that, I realized I needed to improve. So I started improving speaking. I started practicing in front of a monitor, literally with a picture of somebody random. I would sit here and just start talking about my experience or talking about systems or technical or solving problems. I was building projects every single day, pushing code to GitHub, learning new things, learning about AI that I'm so reluctant about, but trying to adapt in this market. So I really thought like, hey, I need to get better. But as I started getting better and started doing better in these interviews, I realized that in the end, at least for this moment, it's just a trap. And I know that sounds like an excuse, and I am the first to understand, criticism, constructive criticism. I was in the Marine Corps as an infantryman. I can take criticism. You can yell at me, and I can handle it. Not that I accept that, but I'm just telling you the amount of stress I can handle. I know what it takes to get better, and I've always done hard things in my life. I always choose the hardest thing or the biggest challenge that I want to accomplish because I really enjoy challenges. So I really thought it was me. But in this market, I'm starting to realize, especially with, I have 10, 15 colleagues that have yet to find a job too in the same amount of time that I've been looking for a job. Some from my previous role and others from that were colleagues from school and just meeting each other, developing software together, and by whatever other means, they're still looking for jobs. There are some people with 10 years of real job experience out there that I know, a lot of people actually I know with 10 plus that haven't found a job. So the one thing I wanted to encompass in the end to help anybody going through this process is I want you to understand what's actually what companies are expecting. I'll tell you one more story before I go. I did an interview before this last one that I got rejected, and I talked with a guy, super excited to work with me, the same song and dance that they all have as a script, I believe at this point, telling me that they can't wait to work with me. I do their technical assessment. It's a 3-hour assessment that's full stack. Incredible amount of work for 3 hours. No one should be expected to do this amount of work in 3 hours with AI. Now, this was supposed to be 50-50 AI. So 50% was manual, and you would explain your manual code and how you designed it. And the other 50% was AI. So I built this whole crazy feature, and they reach out to me that night after I submitted it. Mind you, they also wanted me to deploy this on Versal so they could see this live, which was crazy, in my opinion. And they let me know, hey, you know what? This isn't what we were looking for at all. I responded to them and I told them, hey, I hit every spec on the sheet. I did more than what you wanted. What went wrong? I was mad. I told them, I said, you know what? If you wasted my time like this and have me deploy my code live on Versal, which you're probably just going to rip and steal for a feature, you're going to have to pay me. So I literally sent them an invoice. I said, hey, here's an invoice for my work. They get back to me and they tell me, hey man, the truth is that you just didn't do enough. Here's an example of what someone else did, and this is what we're looking for. So they sent me the solution that someone else worked on and finished. I looked through it. It's the same exact thing that I did, like even down to the styling, everything looks the same for this feature. The difference was this guy had about 30 more features. And in the email, he said, we were looking for someone that leaned fully into AI. In their instructions, they told me 50% manual, 50% AI. This person who did this leaned 100% into AI. And they were looking for someone that could do it fast and include as many features as they could, just vibe coded, slapped into the, you understand the point. I was really mad about this because the instructions were unclear, and now I've understood with other interviews that people are looking for, at least in this 2026 market, they're looking for someone who is super fast, that 100% uses only AI. If anybody ever tells you we look for manual coding, which they don't, they're not looking for that. They're looking for someone who is extremely fast, so they want 10x, 100x engineer. And they want someone who uses AI all the time, someone who's on call, available all the time to fix everything once broken, and they don't care about security. I've personally asked 10 companies what their stance on security is in 2026. And what they tell me is that they're not concerned with AI hurting their security because no other company is concerned with anything more than building features and manipulating data in a way that makes them more money. Right now, it's more cost effective, they say, for them to design shitty, unsecure software than it is to just push more features out there. So security is kind of, this is a different topic I would like to go into, but security, at least in 2026 in this AI bubble, is funny enough is dying in some ways. Now this is not good. This is going to backfire on everybody eventually, but this is what companies are saying. This is what 10 freaking companies told me. They don't care about security. They want to push vibe coded shit. So now that I'm remembering the last job process that I went through with the engineers watching me code, they also told me that I was slower than the candidate that they chose. They were looking for someone fast. So just so you guys understand what they're looking for now, they're looking for super fast. They want a super fast slave, somebody who's available all the time to fix problems, someone who's going to answer the phone to the CEO all the time and say, "Yes, sir, I'm going to fix that right now." Horribly stressful time for software engineers. So process is bad. You know what? I've fully accepted that this whole thing might just be cooked. It might just be cooked, and I've accepted that. So this isn't me coming from a standpoint of like, oh my gosh, I just can't get a job no matter what because I'm trying so hard or this or that and the other. Like, I've fully accepted that thousands of other people, maybe millions, I don't know, are going through the same thing that I'm going through. And it's not your fault. You're not a shitty engineer. You're not a bad coder. It's just what's happened, the sign of the times right now. So I don't know what to tell you. I think the job market data is extremely skewed right now, and I think it's wrong with how many people are actually employed doing this at the moment. I would say that if you're going to continue searching for jobs while you're laid off, give yourself some grace at least and allow yourself to not get stressed like me and have your eyeball start bleeding and having health problems when you get stressed or panic attacks in the middle of the night. Like, it's not worth it. Take a break, go play a game, go take a walk, do whatever it is that makes you happy. Spend some time with some family, with your dog, cat, whatever you have. And just take a breather because life is too short to give a goddamn about this terrible job market that is forcing you in a survival situation. You are highly skilled. I am highly skilled in my job, and they're looking for unicorns out there. So you're probably not a unicorn. Moral of the story. Anyways, I hope you gain something out of this, and good luck. I hope that in a few years this bubble has popped and we're all just out there making a ton of money fixing all the problems that have arisen from this horrible, horrible time. Maybe it's a fever dream, but I'm keeping it in the back of my head. So with that, peace out.